After talking to several professional photographers recently, I discovered they all share one simple yet powerful camera adjustment that transforms their shooting experience right from the start. In today's video, I'm deep diving into this game-changing technique and how it can elevate your photography too. So welcome back to another video. So I've got some settings or camera techniques I want to share with you today, but I really want to deep dive into the scenarios where you might want to use these particular settings. It's something I always change on every camera as soon as I pick it up the first time, and I know a lot of professional photographers use this technique as well. Later on, we're going to be heading out to do some astro landscape photography as well, which I'm super excited about because we're meant to get a break in the sky about midnight, so I'm really excited about that. And I'll show you how to use this technique in the dark as well. Anyway, lots to cover in today's video, so let's get stuck into it. So the setting I want to focus on today, no pun intended, is back button focusing. But more importantly, I want to highlight the specific scenarios where this technique truly shines, because I think it's an incredibly powerful tool that can transform your photography when used in the right situations. If you're not familiar with this, basically what we do is assign the focus acquisition to the rear button on the back here, instead of the more traditional method by half pressing the shutter button. Now, in default camera settings, pressing the shutter button halfway focuses the camera and pressing it fully takes the shot. But this can lead to issues such as accidentally refocusing when you don't want to, which obviously isn't very good. But by separating the focus function to a different button, you gain way more control. So the shutter button only captures the image while the back button handles the focusing. And this makes it much easier to maintain focus once you've got your focus locked into place. So back button focusing is especially helpful for shooting moving subjects like wildlife, because you can continuously track a subject by holding down the back button while the shutter button is free to take shots whenever the moment is right. You know, you're not worrying about losing focus. So this is great for anything that is fast paced, because you know you can maintain focus on a moving subject by keeping that back button pressed, but also shoot multiple images without having the camera refocus each time you press the shutter button. So before we get on to the next point, which is super important, I just want to touch on what we'll be doing later on in the video. So the plan is to head out to the sea stacks down the southwest coast of Pembrokeshire and shoot the Milky Way, because this time of the year it's vertical around about midnight. And I think, if my planning is correct, we can get the Milky Way directly behind the stacks in a vertical orientation. And the forecast is to be clear around about midnight. So if all of this planning comes together, hopefully we'll get a really good shot, something I've been wanting to do for a while. So yeah, tons of planning gone into this one. So let's keep our fingers crossed that it all works out, but we will see. But before we get onto that, let's move on to the next point. So another great reason for using back button focusing is so you can easily switch between continuous and single focus modes without having to change your settings. For example, you can use continuous focus by holding down the back button, or you can achieve the single focus lock by just pressing and releasing the back button, allowing for quick adaptability. Now, I use this technique all of the time when I used to shoot a lot of portraits. So I would lock my focus on the subject's eyes using the back button to focus, recompose the shot without refocusing, and capture multiple shots with the confidence that I will know, that focus will remain locked. Now, if myself or the subject is moving, I could just hold down the back button, knowing my focus would track the subject. And for me, this is one of the biggest benefits to using back button focusing, I think. Remember though, you'll need to have the continuous autofocus enabled if you want to make this work. In this example, I have my back button pressed, and as you can see, it's maintaining focus as I move closer to the camera. In this example, I pressed and released the back button and the camera remains at a locked focal plane. See how it comes back into focus as I return to my original position. So, for shooting landscapes, I leave my focus mode in manual. I then use the back button to focus on an object. Now, once I've locked focus by pressing the back button, the camera won't refocus when I then press the shutter. And this is particularly useful when recomposing a shot after focusing on a specific subject. I can now take as many shots as I want, knowing my focus point won't change. And this is how I focus for the majority of my landscape images. Super simple, but really, really effective. So it's time to fast forward a few hours, and please do join me at the stacks where we'll hopefully capture this amazing astrophotography shot that I've been thinking about for some time. And then we'll come back and share a few more points about back button focusing and why it can be so important. I think when it comes to astrophotography, it's crucial to know the area well, or at least to have scouted the location during the day, especially if you're near the edge of cliffs like I was for tonight's shoot. One unexpected challenge though was that the nearby oil refinery was gas flaring and lighting up the low-level clouds with a bright orange glow, and I was really concerned at this point that it might ruin the entire shoot. Despite that, I set up my tripod, attached my Fuji X-H2 with a 13mm Viltrox f1.4 and waited for about an hour for the skies to clear. In terms of settings, I plan to shoot the Milky Way at 13 seconds, f2 and ISO 3200. I found that stopping down from f1.4 to f2 really helps to keep the stars nice and sharp, while 13 seconds is a sweet spot to avoid any star trails with this lens. For this shot, I'll be stitching a series of images together, which I'll explain in just a moment, but here's the final image. So I was actually quite pleased with the final result, and as you can see, there was some cloud and mist around on the horizon, but I think that does, add, I guess, a certain amount of atmosphere to the image. And I think also the bright lights from the oil refinery actually help to shed some light on my foreground. So this image is a 4-shot vertical panorama, all shot at f2. The Milky Way shots are 16 images stacked for noise reduction, and the foreground is 2 focus stacked images, one focused on the stacks and one on the immediate foreground. So yeah, in total, this is a combination of 50 light frames and a further 20, I think, dark frames, which help to reduce the noise even further. And I think I'm super impressed by the level of detail I was able to pull out of the nebulosity in the Milky Way, especially in the lower part. So in terms of focusing, I put my camera into manual mode. I took the foreground images first. I used my head torch to light up the stacks and the foreground, and used my back button to focus on those objects, which I think is really helpful. The stars are obviously much more difficult. For this, you've really got to dial that focus in with the focus ring. Typically, I will focus to infinity, zoom in on my LCD, and just back off the focus a little bit until the stars reach their smallest. The better your LCD screen is, the easier this is. So yeah, a couple of different focusing techniques there to try out next time you're out and about in the dark. And it's so difficult, isn't it, working in the dark, especially when you're right next to the edge of a cliff, but thoroughly enjoyable. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, be sure to give it a like, and why not subscribe for more weekly videos like this. Up here you'll find another video that you might like, and over here there is a link to my ebook all about landscape photography composition, which you might find helpful, and it's a great way as well to help support the channel, help us reach new places. Anyway, until next week, take care.